Right now, somewhere in your company, there's a spreadsheet with names on it. Some of those names are safe. Most are not. And the thing that decides which side you land on has almost nothing to do with how hard you work. This is about job security, career survival, and what it actually takes to become an indispensable employee. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to make yourself layoff-proof. So let's talk about what actually keeps your name off the layoff list, and how to become the one person leadership would fight to protect, no matter what. Because here's the uncomfortable truth you need to hear before anything else. You are far more replaceable than you think you are. You can be talented, reliable, even genuinely well-liked, and still be the first name highlighted when budgets get tight and downsizing conversations begin. Being good at your job is the price of admission. It is not what makes you safe. Employee retention research consistently shows that the people companies fight hardest to keep aren't necessarily the most technically skilled. They're the ones who've made themselves structurally difficult to remove. So let's talk about what actually does make you safe. Because once you understand the difference, you stop competing like everyone else and you start playing a completely different game. Start with this shift because everything else grows out of it. You have to stop thinking of yourself as someone who completes tasks and start thinking of yourself as someone who owns outcomes. Most people show up and do what they're told. They finish the ticket, they send the report, they attend the meeting, and they wait for the next instruction. That person is useful, but that person is a function, and functions can be hired, outsourced, or automated. You don't want to be a function. You want to be the person who looks at a messy, unsolved problem and quietly takes responsibility for the result, not just the steps. When you own an outcome, you stop asking what you're supposed to do, and you start asking what actually needs to happen. That single change in posture makes leadership see you differently almost immediately, because they spend most of their day surrounded by people who need to be managed, and suddenly here you are managing yourself. Once you're owning outcomes, the next move is to become the person who holds knowledge nobody else has. Every company runs on a handful of people who simply understand how things really work. They know why the system was built the way it was. They know which client will explode if you touch their account the wrong way. They know where the bodies are buried in the code base, the contract, the process. This is what's called institutional knowledge, and it is one of the most underrated forms of career protection that exists. Businesses have a term for this concept, key person risk, sometimes called key man dependency. When leadership realizes that losing you creates a genuine operational risk, you stop being a line item and start being a liability they can't afford. That knowledge is power, and you build it slowly by paying attention when everyone else is coasting. When something breaks and nobody knows why, you're the one who digs until you understand it. When a process is confusing, you're the one who maps it out. Over time, you become the person people walk over to when they're stuck, and that is exactly where you want to be. Because the moment you are the answer to other people's questions, removing you stops being a clean decision and starts being a risk. Now, a warning here, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. There's a difference between holding valuable knowledge and hoarding it. If you hide information to protect your job, people feel it, and it makes you look small and insecure. The person your company can't lose isn't the one who guards secrets. It's the one who teaches, who documents, who makes everyone around them better, and somehow still remains the center of gravity. You give knowledge away freely, and you're still indispensable, because your real value was never the information. It was your judgment, your context, your ability to connect the dots faster than anyone else in the room. Let's talk about your relationship with the people above you, because this is the lever almost nobody pulls correctly. You need to make your manager's life easier, not by flattering them, not by saying yes to everything, but by becoming the person who removes problems from their plate instead of adding to it. Picture your boss's day. It is a constant stream of fires, complaints, and things going slightly wrong. Most of their team adds to that pile. You want to be the rare person who takes things off it. When you bring your manager a problem, bring a proposed solution with it. When you see something about to go sideways, flag it early. Before it becomes a crisis, they have to explain to their boss. Do this consistently, and you become something incredibly valuable to them. You become a source of calm. And when leadership feels calmer because you exist, they fight to keep you, because they are not protecting a job title. They're protecting their own peace of mind. This connects to something most ambitious people completely ignore, which is the simple reality that your reputation travels further than your work does. You can do brilliant work in silence and watch someone louder get the credit and the promotion. It happens constantly, and it isn't fair, but you have to deal with the world as it is. So you need to build relationships across the company, not just within your own team. Get to know people in other departments. Be genuinely helpful to them. Become a connector, the person who knows who to talk to and how to get things done through cross-functional collaboration. When your name is known and trusted in 3 different departments, you stop being just an employee in one team. You become part of the connective tissue of the whole organization. And connective tissue is much harder to cut than a single thread, because removing you doesn't just leave one hole, it tears something across the entire structure. But none of this matters if the right people never see it. Which brings us to a skill that feels uncomfortable but absolutely cannot be skipped. You have to make your impact visible without turning into the person who brags about everything. There's a quiet, professional way to do this, and you need to master it. Keep a record of what you actually accomplish, the project you saved, the deadline you protected, the client who stayed because of something you did. When your performance review cycle comes around, you're not scrambling to remember your wins, you have receipts. In meetings, talk about results in terms the business cares about, like time saved, money earned, risk avoided. You're not saying, look at me. You're saying, here's the value that got created, and here's how. Done right, this reframes you in everyone's mind. You stop being someone who does work, and you become someone who produces results, and results are the only language leadership truly speaks. Now here's the deeper principle underneath all of this, the one that separates people who climb from people who plateau. You have to become the person who learns the fastest in the room. Skills get outdated, tools change. The thing that made you valuable 2 years ago might be automated by next year. So your real moat isn't any single skill, it's your speed of adaptation. This is what the workforce development world calls upskilling and reskilling. And the employees who do it proactively, without being asked, are the ones talent management teams flag as high retention priorities. When a new system rolls out, be the first to learn it, not the last. When the industry shifts, you're the one already reading about it while everyone else complains that things used to be simpler. This is what makes you future-proof. Companies don't just want people who are good today, they want people they can bet on for tomorrow. When leadership looks at you and sees someone who keeps getting better, keeps absorbing new challenges, keeps growing into bigger problems, they don't see an employee, they see an investment. And you protect your investments. Let me give you something that ties all of this together, because there's a mindset underneath every point so far. The person a company can't afford to lose almost never acts like they're afraid of losing their job. That fear leaks out. It makes you agreeable when you should push back. It makes you quiet when you should speak. It makes you cling instead of lead. The truly indispensable people carry themselves with a kind of executive presence, a calm confidence, because they know their value isn't tied to one company's mood. They know that if this job disappeared tomorrow, 3 other doors would open, and that security, that quiet certainty, is magnetic. It makes leadership trust you more, not less, because you're operating from strength instead of fear. So the paradox is this. the less desperate you are to keep your job, the more your company wants to keep you. And that leads to the part nobody likes to say out loud, but you need to hear it. Becoming indispensable is not the final goal. It's the leverage. Once you reach the point where your company genuinely can't afford to lose you, you've earned something most employees never get, which is real bargaining power. That's the moment you can ask for the raise, the title, the flexibility, the bigger role, and have it taken seriously, because now there's a real cost to telling you no. The mistake is becoming indispensable and then sitting there grateful, hoping someone notices. They won't reward you out of kindness. They'll reward you when keeping you happy is cheaper than the risk of losing you. So once you've built that position, use it. Quietly, professionally, without threats, but use it. Your value is not a gift you give the company for free. It's an asset you've built, and you are allowed to ask for a return on it. Now let's make this practical because none of it works as theory. Tomorrow, pick one outcome you can fully own, something with a visible result, and take complete responsibility for it. This week, find one piece of institutional knowledge that makes you genuinely useful and go deeper into it than anyone else bothers to. This month, take one real problem off your manager's plate before they ask. And starting right now, keep a simple running list of every win, so the next time someone questions your value, you don't have to argue, you can just show them. Small moves, repeated consistently, and within a few months, you are a noticeably different person in that building. Here's the last thing you need to carry with you. Your company is not loyal to you by default, and pretending otherwise is how good people get blindsided. Loyalty in the modern workplace flows toward value. So you don't make yourself safe by hoping or by working yourself into the ground for praise. You make yourself safe by becoming so genuinely valuable, so deeply woven into how things actually work, that losing you would hurt. That's not manipulation. That's not playing games. It's just understanding the real rules and choosing to win by them instead of pretending they don't exist. So stop trying to be the hardest worker in the room because that title gets you tired, not promoted. Start becoming the most valuable, the most trusted, the most difficult to replace. Own outcomes. Hold the institutional knowledge. Make your boss's life easier. Build your reputation everywhere through cross-functional relationships. Show your impact. Upskill faster than everyone around you. And carry yourself like someone who knows exactly what they're worth. Do that, and you'll never again be just a name on a list someone scrolls past. You'll be the name they protect. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for security to be handed to you, and you start building it yourself.